Emil Cadlick here, NFL Week 6 DFS Wednesday here at footballdiehards.com. I'm here with Jason Brady. How you doing, Jason?
Doing pretty good. Ready to get right back into it. Week 6, the season seems like it's flying by, but yeah, week six already.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, just tell everybody you almost weren't here today because if you'd have put in Tony, you'd have won, and then you'd be on a boat somewhere.
Yeah, I did like everything perfect. I had Derrick Henry, Adams, and Madison all combined for over like 100 points. And then if I had Tony instead of Waddle, it would have been probably the best week of the year by a mile. But still a pretty solid week overall.
That's pretty darn close. Fantastic. All right, where do you want to start?
All right, let's start at quarterback here. And for quarterback, it's, for me, there's a lot of great options up top. You have Mahomes, Jackson, and Kyler Murray. For me, I think the one I'm going to go to is probably going to be the Patrick Mahomes side. Going against Washington here. It is a 55.5-point total, and this is a game I'm going to be very heavily invested in on both sides. Obviously, the Chiefs side is a side that you always want to take a look at, but the Chiefs' defense has been really, really bad this year. So Mahomes, for me, he's 8,300. He's very expensive, but he's getting an amazing matchup here against Washington, who their defense is really, really struggling this year. And they also made, I want to say they made a mistake on DraftKings pricing Travis Kelce at 7,000. It was just like 2 weeks ago where Kelce was like 8,500. So they made it to a way where you can just stack up this Chiefs offense very, very easy, a lot easier than usual. So I think it's going to be very, very popular, this Chiefs stack, and it's a stack that I do like as well.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds very good. And, of course, Patrick is number one owned at this point in time on Wednesday, 16.47%. And let's just go back over to Kelce, who is also number one owned for the tight ends at 18.7%.
Yep, these Chiefs are going to be very, very chalky this week. Yeah, I don't know why they priced down Kelce, but we got to take advantage of it, I think. So
yeah, I mean, obviously they're in a position where it's roll the sleeves up time. We need to start winning. We need to start figuring this thing out.
100%. If they lose to Washington, that's not going to be good. That's not going to be good.
And they're playing home too. No, they're playing at Washington, but whatever.
Yeah. But, so Mahomes for me up top. And then the other guy who is actually $900 cheaper is going to be Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson is actually having a really good year, averaging 29.2 DraftKings points, which is more than Patrick Mahomes. And he's in a game that has a 52-point game total, which that is going to be the second highest on the slate. Usually you can play Lamar Jackson by himself, but there's actually some stacking options. I do like to mention a couple. Mark Andrews, I like him a lot. He went off last week. He's been consistent all year. Marquis Brown is somebody that went off last week. He's been consistent all year. And then Rashad Bateman might be making an appearance, making his very first debut. If that comes to play, and he's going to be 3K. So I think it makes it really easy to stack up Lamar Jackson against the Chargers here. And, of course, you do get that rushing yard upside with Jackson. 56 rushing attempts this year, which is obviously the most of any quarterback. So I do like that a lot in terms of cash. I think it's pretty safe, and I do think he has some upside as well.
You know, the end of that game, that overtime, it was just like there was a point there in the second half where they couldn't stop the Baltimore Ravens. And Mark Andrews, as you pointed out, he had an incredible game, and I don't know if he'll do it again, but he is the number two owned tight end at 14.5% at this point, so everybody's piling on, which I guess they should.
Oh, yeah, and I'm very curious to hear the ownership on this guy here. Taylor Heineke going up for Washington, going against Kansas City, so going to be opposite of Mahomes here, and he's very cheap, 5,800. The reason I do like him is because of the game script, 6.5-point underdogs, which means they're projected to be trailing, and going against the Chiefs, who have really, their defense has looked so bad this year. I think they can have success. Good stacking options. You have Seals Jones, who I did like last week. I like him again this week. And then also McLaurin, who's probably one of my favorite wide receiver plays on the entire slate. So I think Taylor Heineke stacks would be very interesting, very cheap, affordable this week against Kansas City.
Well, he is the seventh highest. Heineke is the seventh highest quarterback, although it's only at 5.2%. So there's a big, he's a big shift there. So he's up there, but he's not so up there. So that works out.
Yep, not the most talented quarterback in the world, but this is just a matchup where I feel like they're going to throw the ball a ton, and this Chiefs defense has just been looking awful, terrible. So
Yeah, I'm almost somewhat scared that Kansas City's going to finally figure it out, but maybe it'll just be a high-scoring game, as you pointed out. Heineke, he's got some talent there. He's got some nice physical skills. Samuels I think he's questionable. Curtis Samuels, who came back finally, and that doesn't help them, but it doesn't mean that that's going to throw their whole offense. But it's unfortunate.
yeah. Yep, so Heineke is somebody I do like, and then the last guy that's on my list is going to be Mac Jones, going against Dallas, 51.5 point total. He is really cheap, 5,200, averaging 13.5 DraftKings points. Just a cheap option here in a solid total game. I believe the Dallas game's the third highest total on the slate. They are projected to be trailing, which means more passing. A cheap stacking option in Jacoby Myers, who I do like as well. Solid matchup against Dallas. So I think Mac Jones is interesting. 5,200 if I was to go down and get a punt play.
I was thinking of mentioning him, but I was almost too embarrassed to. But 5,200, Dallas it's in New England. Maybe Dallas, they beat the Giants. So what? But it was a conference game, and they're looking good. So you never know. Maybe they're going to get a little complacent, maybe on the road. Whatever. But that's $5,200 for Mac Jones. That's an interesting, tempting thing to take up. 2.1% owned for Mac Jones. Nice and low.
Yep, I don't hate it, but most of my lineups will definitely have the Mahomes and Heineke, and then sprinkle some Jackson. I guess one guy I do want to also mention, I think Joe Burrow's interesting, 6,300. The Bengals' backfield is beat up. P. Ryan might not even play. Mixon was limited last week. I think they're going to have to throw the ball here, and they get a phenomenal matchup against Detroit. So I think Burrow is somebody else that did stick out. Anything else stick out to you?
Burrow is 2.5%. Those are the ones. Jones was the one I was going to mention as a pretty good play. So there's some guys down there that are pretty low owned, but as we progress to Sunday, sometimes these ownerships can fluctuate a bit. But yeah, those are the ones I was looking at.
Yep, sounds good. I think it's pretty straightforward in terms of quarterbacks. Oh, by the way, Kansas City has actually given up the most DraftKings points to opposing quarterbacks, so
Whoa.
That's pretty good for Heineke there. Yeah.
Whoa, that's a heck of a stat right there.
Yep. So I like him even more after seeing that. But so we'll get into running backs here, and Christian McCaffrey is questionable. If he does play, this just seems way too cheap for Christian McCaffrey. He's somebody that he was 9,900 back in week 2, and he's never been under 9,000 this year. And now he's 8,800. If he does play and he's not limited, he seems like a smash spot against Minnesota, 45.5 point total. Obviously he has that elite pass catching upside, tons of receptions, tons of carries in general. So McCaffrey for me, 8,800. If he does play, once we start getting news that he's going to play, I think the ownership is going to skyrocket. But I'm curious to hear what it is at the moment.
Right now it's at 13%. He's the third most owned running back. Now, that's an early game, so everybody, we should be able to know that he's going to play. And I think there was a note on footballdiehards.com earlier today in the team notes or whatnot that he's like 50-50. The coach came out and said he's 50-50, which kind of, I don't know what to think about that. And, of course, we're going to get a lot more practice and news as we follow through the week. So, and it's the early game, so we'll know. But even if he, he's still a guy right now, which worries me a little. McCarthy he's come in and they say he's healthy, he's going, and then he's gotten hurt and left the game, which is not fun for anybody, and that's a little concern. And I assume maybe they want to be careful bringing him back, but they lost last week. That was a crazy game, by the way, and they need to keep winning. And so, how long do you wait? If a guy may be 90% or 80%, so that'll be interesting to see whether he goes or not, and then whether you got the guts to use him, which is pretty easy to use him.
Yeah, 50-50 though. I don't like hearing that, but yeah, we'll see what happens throughout the week in terms of the news.
It's not something I like to see, but it's an early thing. It could be just something the coach says to say something, because it's basically saying, well, I don't know what it's saying. That's the problem.
Yeah, me either. We don't know what the coaches are thinking.
We don't really know what that means.
No, but yeah. So if McCaffrey does play, I'm going to be all over him. If he does not play, there's another guy I do like that is $900 cheaper, and that's going to be Austin Eckler. It's in the 52-point total game, which is the second highest on the slate, going against Baltimore. And Eckler's been on fire this entire year. He had that weird week one, I believe it was week one, where he had like 0 targets, 0 receptions, and I kept going back to him, and I haven't stopped going back to him since. Averaging 24.7 DraftKings points, he's getting it done week after week. And I think it's a solid matchup here against Baltimore in a 52-point total. So they're going to get him the ball. They're going to throw him the ball. I think Eckler's somebody that I really do like at 7,900.
Yeah, he's 12.6% owned, so he's up there pretty high, fourth highest owned running back. What a game that was! I can't believe that game, and everybody scored on that for the Chargers. He's looking good.
Yeah,
he's really looking good. Eckler is so. Is 7,900 a good
I thought they were
price
going to hit
for
like
him,
the 100-point mark at one point.
Wow, is Eckler at 7,900 a good price? Do you think?
It's going to be the most expensive he's been all year. I think they priced him at like 300, but yeah, I think it's still pretty solid.
Okay.
Yep. So he was 7,600 last week. In week 4, he was actually 6,800. So yes, this will be the most expensive Eckler has been all year, and I do think it's warranted. But yeah, this 6K range is really interesting. There's a ton of guys that stick out. The first one being Jonathan Taylor going against Houston. And when I want to play Jonathan Taylor, I want to play him as a favorite. I want to play him in a positive game script, because what we see happening is when the Colts get down, they don't really use Taylor a ton. We see Hines start to come in and get a lot of that workload, and that was not the case last week. The past couple weeks, I think. And then this is a case where they're 10-point favorites against Houston. They're projected to be up. I think this is the perfect time to go back to Jonathan Taylor, averaging 18.1 DraftKings points, and obviously a phenomenal matchup against the Texans as well. So yeah, I like Jonathan Taylor quite a bit.
Yeah, what a game last week. He's 11.6% owned, which isn't too bad. It's up there, but not horrible.
Nope. And then continuing with this, the 6K range, Daryl Henderson is interesting going against the Giants, 48.5-point total. Again, another positive game script, 9.5-point favorite, 6K. Just a solid spot here against the Giants, who the Giants have given up the third most DraftKings points to opposing running backs. So I think Henderson is pretty interesting as well. We saw Michelle get some work last week. Henderson was a little beat up last week, so if he does come in here fully healthy, I don't expect Michelle to go out there and get like 11. I think Michelle had like 11 carries last week. I expect that to go down if Henderson is looking fully healthy, and it seems to be trending that way.
Well, ironically, Daryl Henderson is the number 1 owned running back so far this week in Wednesdays, 15.7%. He's up there.
Yeah, he's cheap. He's cheap, and he's good. He's pretty good and a great matchup.
Yeah, the Giants have got some injuries, which we'll talk about when we get to run it receivers, etc.
Yep, they do. And then continuing with this 6K range, I feel like I talk about so many players here. This one's interesting. This one is, I want to say, a sneaky one. I don't know what the ownership is. I'm curious to hear it. But Joe Mixon going against Detroit. So Joe Mixon was limited last week. We saw P. Ryan get a lot of work. P. Ryan is on the COVID reserve list. If P. Ryan is out and if Mixon is fully healthy, and not limited, I think this is a phenomenal spot for Mixon going against this Detroit defense. 48-point total. They're 3.5-point favorites. I think it's a great spot for him, but I do have the concerns. And is he going to be limited? And if P. Ryan does play, that hurts a little bit, I think. But if P. Ryan is out, like, they're going to be forced to just let Mixon play the majority of these snaps. You got to think.
Well, he was limited in practice today, according to FootballDiaries.com. So the good thing, it's a morning game. So we'll obviously get some practice, and we'll be able to feel that one out. But that's an excellent point. He's kind of fizzled the last few weeks, mainly because of injury or whatnot. So he is a tempting guy this week, for all of what you said. 6.1% owned, so he's getting down there a little bit. So maybe people are losing faith in him. And so that makes it maybe a good opportunity.
Yeah, it's probably the concerns of, if is he going to be limited or is he not going to be limited? If he is limited, probably doesn't work out. But if he's full go, like, this is a phenomenal matchup.
Well, hopefully we'll know the answer to that question before the game, because he is an early game and we'll have some practices, etc. Hopefully we'll know and be able to make a nice choice, or an easier decision on him being Mixon.
Yep. Yep, we will find it out hopefully within the next couple of days. But so now I'm curious to hear this guy's ownership. I think he's going to be one of the highest owned running backs on the slate. It's Daryl Williams going against Washington, 55.5-point total. The Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites. I'm not expecting a ton from Daryl Williams, but this is the highest total on the slate. They're projected to be winning. Positive game script. CH is out. He's going to be the lead back. I like the matchup. I think Daryl Williams is going to be very popular, but I think it'll be warranted because he's just so cheap, 4,900 on one of the best, if not the best, offenses in the NFL. In a game like this, I like Daryl Williams quite a bit.
10.9% owned. He's about the ninth or 10th owned running back. So he's up there. And, not surprising. Great offense, all the stuff you said. He's going to be the majority of the ball carrier. So his ownership is, 10.9%.
Yep, not as bad as I thought. And then those were mostly for me, but there were two other guys that I want to mention. Devon Booker, I'm sure, is going to get a ship with Barkley being. For me, I'm not going to get through that much. I'm curious to hear what Jamie has to say about this on Sunday. But going against the Rams, really tough defense. I believe they're 9.5-point dogs. So negative game script. I just don't really see myself getting too much Booker, especially if he's going to be high owned. So depending on ownership, if he's low owned, maybe I'll take some shots because he is so going to be that guy. But the games.
Well, he is the third most owned running back at 13.4%. So people are already on him early in the week. I like your point, though. He's going to get opportunities, but I don't know if that's such a great situation against the Rams. So despite the low salary, I would be a little bit concerned about putting Booker in and expecting him to have a big game.
Yeah, I just don't like the matchup at all. But yeah, he's cheap. He's 5,400. He's going to get the majority of the work. I think he's okay, but I just wish he wasn't playing the Rams. And plus, on top of that, the Giants are really beat up both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, it's not pretty at all.
Yeah, and then I guess the one guy I wanted to quickly mention would be Deandre Swift, 6,300, getting a ton of targets. 11 targets in week one. He had at least six targets in the last 3 weeks. The lowest amount of targets he's got all year was 5 in week 2 against Green Bay. So he's getting a ton of targets. Yes, he's splitting carries with Jamal Williams, but can't deny that Deandre Swift is getting it done. Averaging 18.2 DraftKings points, going against Cincinnati. He's somebody else that I considered. I like Eckler more than him, though. I'd rather have Mixon than him, and then there's Henderson as well. But I think Swift is another guy that kind of stuck out to me.
Well, he's 10.7% owned. Swift is, so he's up there. But he's been playing great, like you said. So that's not horrible. I mean, you got to expect some of that. And Cincinnati's, they've been playing a lot better. They've been dinged up a little bit. So yeah, that's a good opportunity right there.
Yep. Anybody else stick out for you?
Let me find him here. Singletary. Why is he not in here? Is he an off game?
I think he's the night game. I think it's the night game or the Monday game.
All right, so I'm picking a guy that you can't really play, but he'd be a good guy. Oh, the other guy was thinking, that's receivers. We'll hit that in a minute. So I really don't have anything to add that you have already hit.
Okay, yeah, I think we covered it all. Oh, one more thing to mention. Cook is if Dalvin just Madison in. Last week, Dalvin Cook got rolled out. I put Madison in pretty much every single one of my lineups, so that's something else to look out for. And just a ton of. I'm looking at the player pool on DraftKings, and there's questionable tags on literally about everyone: Mixon, Swift, Gibson, Barkley, Elliott, Chubb, Jones, Cook, McCaffrey. There's going to be a lot of injury news that we'll look out for throughout the week.
Sounds good.
All right, and then we'll move on to wide receivers here. And yeah, Devontae Adams got it done last week. 9,000. I was all a ton of lineups. He scored, I think, 40 drafts. So that was good. Going right back to him here again against Chicago. 44-point total. They're 4.5-point favorites. Solid matchup against Chicago, who does rank 26 in terms of DraftKings points given up to wide receivers. And he has unreal volume. 61 targets on the year for Adams, which that is a ton. So yeah, Adams 9K. He's going to be chalky as expected, but I think Adams, if you can go up and get him, I think he's always a good piece to get in your lineup.
Yeah, Adams incredible. Every once in a while he has a low game, but it's great. He is actually the 6th ranked wide receiver, but the third through the sixth, they're all around 13. He's 13.1, so he's definitely lower than typical. Chicago has been playing well, and it's going to be in Chicago, so maybe that's why he's sliding a little there.
Yeah, interesting. I believe he's the first highest owned wide receiver last week. So
he was huge,
that's good.
And he turned out really well, didn't he?
Oh yeah. So this is the next one where you got to expect he's going to be one of the highest on the slate. Tyreek Hill going against Washington, a game that I'm going to be all over. It seems like everybody's going to be all over, but so he is a little beat up. If he does play, I'm going to be all over him. If he does not play, that's going to open up things for guys like Mecole Hardman. Going to be even heavier on Travis Kelce, but if he does play, I'm going to be all over him here. Going against Washington, who has struggled, really bad in terms of the passing game. I think Tyreek Hill has slate breaking potential. He's 8,500, getting $500 savings off of Devontae Adams, and it's a great way to stack him up with Patrick Mahomes as well. So Tyreek Hill, somebody I'm going to be very heavy on this week if he does play, and if he's not limited or nothing like that.
Well, he's the number one owned wide receiver this week at this point in time, 22.4%. So very highly owned right now.
Yeah, that's crazy that the highest quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end are all cheap.
It's obvious that people think that they're gonna figure this out, especially against Washington. So people are stacking it up.
Can't blame them.
Yes.
All right. So moving on to the next one. This is probably one of my favorite wide receiver plays on the slate. It's on the opposite side of Hill. It's going to be Terry McLaurin. It is at 55.5 point total. They're projected to be trailing by 6.5 points, which I do like, which means projected to be throwing the ball. I think they're going to need to pass the ball to keep up with this Chiefs offense. And yeah, like I said, the Chiefs defense does not look great at all. I think McLaurin and Heineke can definitely have success here. I don't mind that Heineke-McLaurin stack as well. And on top of that, Terry McLaurin, he seems way too cheap, 7,100, getting a massive savings off of guys like Adams and Hill, who are much better plays. But I still think McLaurin's up there as well in terms of being a very good play, being in a very good spot. I think he's going to get a ton of opportunities as well. 7,100, sign me up.
Yeah, he's the fourth most highest wide receiver, 13.5%. So yeah, I think that's a little higher than he typically is off the top of my head. So that is a very tempting guy to play this week.
Yep, I'm all over him. Hopefully he does good, and I think he will. I think that game as a whole, I'd be shocked if it didn't deliver.
Definitely.
All right, so this next one's interesting. So we have Mike Williams sitting at 8,100, and Keenan Allen is sitting at 6,400. And I do like Keenan Allen here. The price tag on Mike Williams is interesting because if you would have told me earlier in the year that Mike Williams at 8,100 and Keenan Allen at 6,400, I probably would have called you crazy. But Mike Williams has been getting it done. He's been looking good. Had a monster. I think he had 16 targets last week as well. And Mike Williams strikes me as a guy that's kind of like a boom or bust play where he can very well go out there and get a huge game like he did last week. But there was a game 2 weeks ago where he only had 2.1 DraftKings points. He had 4 targets, only 1 reception. So kind of strikes me as a boom or bust player. And that's typically what he's been throughout his career. But this year he's been a little more consistent. He's been really good as well. But the price tag I just don't like on Mike Williams. I'd rather get the savings and go with someone in Keenan Allen who – he's always extremely reliable. He's really cheap, 6,400. He's doing really good. He's averaging 16.6 DraftKings points. He's averaging over 10 targets still. So yeah, I like Keenan Allen here against Baltimore. I think he's a great run back option for my Lamar Jackson stacks. Don't mind stacking him up with Herbert as well, but yeah, Keenan Allen 6,400 I do like quite a bit. I think Mike Williams has the higher ceiling of the two, but I definitely think Keenan Allen's is safer, and we can always expect a ton of targets, a ton of receptions from Allen there.
Well, I respect Baltimore's defense, but wow, they've been giving up a lot of yards, etc. Mike Williams is at 9.6% owned in wide receivers, and Keenan Allen is just behind him, the next guy at 9.4. So that difference in salary has probably pushed Keenan Allen up. People are probably a little concerned because he's usually the dominating guy. And like you said, Mike Williams is a guy who usually has a great game every once in a while and has got a really low floor. And at this point in time, that has not happened. But I still have faith in Keenan Allen, and that's a pretty good price, $6,400. Very tempting.
Yeah, I feel like Allen's a guy you can play in cash every single week and feel pretty good about it. But yep, the next guy we have Jamar Chase going against Detroit, and I actually do like pretty much all of these Bengals wide receivers. It'd probably, if I had to rank them, I'd go Chase, Higgins, and then Boyd at third, but I think they're all in play. Chase, 6,700, so it's going to be a big price jump. I can't remember off the top of my head the salary. I think he was like 5,600, 5,700 last week. He's now 6,700 here.
They bumped him that much, huh?
a big bump, and for a very big reason. He has been looking great. Like, we had our concerns earlier in the year about the preseason, but those concerns are not there anymore, averaging 20.9 DraftKings points, going against Detroit. And my thought process is, if Mixon is beat up, if he is limited, if we don't see P. Ryan playing, I think they're really going to try to pass the ball, and I think Chase is somebody that can definitely benefit from that. So yeah, Chase is interesting, 6,700.
Yeah, he is 9.3% owned, down a bit. T. Higgins right now is way above him at 11.6, and of course you're saving $600 on T. Higgins. I don't know if I really that Chase is he's such a talented man. And I like Higgins too, so it's really hard to decide if you want to pay the Higgins, save the money on Higgins. And excuse me, he's 5,300. My eyes can't see well, so you're saving a ton.
A lot, yeah.
You're saving $1,400. I need to put my glasses on, although they probably really won't help. So I can see why Higgins is up there with that. But Chase is, wow, yeah, he just. What a talented man, and how different it was from preseason. So interesting one. Boyd is at 5,400, and he's only 4.7% owned.
Yeah, like I said, I think they're all three in play. I do like the savings from Higgins. Yeah, that's a big savings from Higgins there. But yeah, I think all three of them are pretty much in play against Detroit.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, next guy we have Jacoby Myers, who I remember last week on Wednesday, Jacoby Myers was ranking out to be one of the highest owned projected wide receivers on the slate, and he was a very high wide receiver in terms of projection, and it kind of let people down. I think he scored around 9 DraftKings points last week. I wasn't really on him last week, but I do kind of like him here, especially, hopefully the ownership isn't too high here, but going against Dallas, it's a 51.5 point total. They're projected to be 3.5 point dogs, and he's very cheap. He's very cheap, 5,500. You don't need much there, and he's averaging like a little over 10 targets per week, just below 10 targets per week for Myers here. So it is, especially at the price tag, right? 5,500 going against Dallas, high scoring game. Again, they're projected to be trailing. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. Harris is beat up as well and might not even play. So yeah, I think Jacoby Myers at that price tag. He was popular last week. I'm hoping he's not as popular this week because I really do like him this week.
Well, I think you're going to get your wish. Right now he's at 4.1% owned. He's fairly well down there. And I think you're right, though. It's a good situation. New England at home against Dallas. And I think the stat was he's never scored a touchdown. If I got the wrong guy, I think it's him.
No, it's him.
Yeah. So
it's him.
This is the week. I say he's going to score against the Cowboys. So
I like it.
Yeah. 4.2% owned. Not bad.
Yeah. Not at all. Like, it's crazy how people jump off these guys so quick. Like, even last week, he didn't do horrible. He scored 9.6, but yeah, people jumped off the Myers bandwagon this week, and I guess I'm gonna jump on.
Sounds good. We'll follow his ownership as the week progresses here at footballdiehards.com.
Yep, for sure. Ownership throughout the week is going to be key. We'll talk about that more on Sunday as well. Yep, so next we have Marquis Brown for Baltimore going against the Chargers, 52-point total, 5,900. Yeah, this price tag really makes no sense to me. He's averaging 21.9 DraftKings points per week, which is a ton. And the thing about Brown is last year he'd be like this boom or bust player where he'd have a really good game one week, a very bad game the next. But this year he's been surprisingly very consistent after week. This guy is getting it done. Consistency, which is something we didn't typically see from him. Last year pretty much for the most part we'd play Lamar Jackson by himself because you really didn't need to stack him up. But this year, and especially right here in this matchup here against the Chargers and 52-point total, I don't mind stacking up Marquise Brown whatsoever, especially at this price tag. Yeah, like this price tag, just seems way too cheap for me. Taking a look at his last couple games, obviously he had that big game against the Colts, 36.5 DraftKings points, 19.1, 26.3, 19.4. His worst game was 8.3, but yeah, he's being really consistent this year, and I like it, and I like the price tag.
5,900. He's 6.9% owned. He's like about the 18th or so. He's fairly well down there. And what a huge game that was last week. And the Chargers, wow, they've been scoring a lot of points. In that Cleveland game, I just couldn't believe how many points were being scored. Mm-hmm. So, Baltimore obviously can score points. So, even though you're playing a very good team in the Chargers, I don't know, there could be a lot of points scored in that game, and this guy could be a really good player.
Yep, for sure. And then we have to wait for news about Rashad Bateman, the rookie wide receiver for the Ravens. If he does play, he's $3K minimum. Watkins is also beat up. He didn't practice on Wednesday. So if Bateman does play at $3K, I think it's worth some shots as well.
Yeah, I always worry about a guy coming in who's missed a lot of preseason, but $3,000 is pretty cheap. Attempted PPR flyer, huh? Or PPG flyer.
Yep, GPP. But, 3K. I mean, you don't really need much. Obviously, we'll see if there's news about if he's going to be on a pitch count or not. If he's full go, like 3K, I think it's worth some sprinkles. And then other than that, there are some guys that are also 3K. DeAndre Carter for Washington is 3K minimum. He did well last week. I think he had like 6 targets last week. Just a lot of beat up pieces in Washington in terms of the wide receiver receiving options there. So DeAndre Carter, he's 3K as well, as is Bateman, and then Daryl Hodge for Detroit. A lot of beat up wide receivers on Detroit. He is also 3K. So there's like 3K wide receivers that are in play for me this week. I'm gonna see where the ownership goes and see where these injury news goes, but I think some of those are to look out for.
Well, he's an interesting one. Curtis Samuel for Washington did not practice here on Wednesday, so he's back hurt again, and again I think that's is that Washington an early game? Yes, it is. So you're going to be able to know whether you feel comfortable with either with Samuel's not playing, then that Carter guy may be even more valuable to you.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, that's about it for me. Anything stick out to you for wide receiver?
Well, I almost hate to say this guy's name. Allen Robinson hasn't been performing. He's 5,300. He's 3.9% owned. I don't know. You got to think about him. I'm not saying you got to play him, but is this guy going to finally come through? Interesting. And then another interesting guy is the Giants. Who do you even know who's going to start yet? We'll know later. Brown's starting to look a little better, but boy, my God, he looked like he was KO'd. But anyway, John Ross is $3,100, and right now he is 11.2% owned, which is at about 11 or 12 most owned wide receiver at this point in time. So if Galloway's probably not going to play, you've had the Slayton issue. Tony, he's hurt, and also he punched some guy. What a talent that Tony is! I finally got we finally got a lot of time to watch that guy play, and if you could implant somebody else's brain in him, this guy's got talent. I really think this Tony guy's got talent. So there's a lot of unknowns there, a lot of injuries there, and so John Ross at 3,100 is being put on lineups right now at 11%. So FYI, it may be a good opportunity. Those are the two I had that I was kind of slushing around in my mouth.
Yep, another one where it all depends on the injuries throughout the week. If some of these wide receivers for the Giants get rolled out, Ross at 3,100, I think that's a great play.
And we're losing some players. It's the bye weeks, so there's 4 teams that are gone. So there's those players that have left the opportunity. I don't know if that makes a difference, but it's an interesting thing to think about how it may give you less options to play.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Not a ton.
Yep, yeah. Allen Robinson though, like that's seeing his price tag at that 5,300 is just it's crazy.
But it's not working for him. It's not happening. So,
Yeah, I mean, I wonder
how you got to hope there's a reason why if you decide you want to throw him in a DFS lineup. as a flyer or not. It's a tough situation. Chicago's playing better though. All of a sudden they're playing good defense, and they are on the upswing.
What'd you say Robinson's ownership was?
Let's go look here. If I could type faster, 3.9%.
Yeah, it's low. Yeah,
it's pretty low. It's pretty low.
Yeah, you got to think one of these weeks he's going to get it together. You got to think.
Brandon Cooks, of course, he's 5,800. He's only 3.1% owned. We've given up on Cooks with the new starting quarterback, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, hasn't been doing much the past couple weeks. He started out the season like hot though, like unbelievable.
He did, didn't he? Big time.
Yeah, but yeah, that's about it for wide receiver. We can get into tight end, and they made it really easy for tight end. There's really three options that I like the most. One being Travis Kelce, who seems like everybody's probably going to play, and for a very good reason. He is 7,000 on DraftKings, and they actually priced Kelce down a ton. So in week 2, Travis Kelce was 8,500. Week 1, he opened up the season 8,300. We now see him at 7,000 in a game like this against Washington. This price makes no sense to me, so I definitely get why he's the highest owned, and I'll be having a lot of Kelce this week.
Well, 18.7% owned, number one owned at this point, and he's usually fairly high up, but I got to think that number is going to go up a little more before Sunday. But how do you not put this guy in some of your cash lineups?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you not put this guy in. He's one of the most consistent players. And, Kansas City, they got to be just – I just can't believe they're going to come out firing away and they're going to fix their issue. And poor Washington is going to be hurting. But you never know. That's why we watch the NFL.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, but, this price makes no sense. I mean, Kelce had one bad game this year against Philly. Only 6.3 DraftKings. Like, even last week, he had 10 targets, scored 17.7.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's great.
So the other one I'm looking at is going to be Mark Andrews. Love the matchup. The Chargers actually rank 30th in terms of DraftKings points given up against tight ends. And you take a look at Andrews, he's been consistent throughout the year, scoring 18.2 DraftKings points on average. The worst game he did have was 5 points in the week 1, but after that, he has not scored less than 10 DraftKings points. The matchups there, game total is there, 52 points. I like stacking him up with Jackson and Mark Andrews, somebody I do like at 5,200 there.
Well, the game script, the Chargers been scoring points. And Baltimore hasn't really, done that well defensively. So it could be a high-scoring game. They could be throwing the ball. So Andrews could, that's going to help Andrews. I always worry when he's floundering a little bit. He wasn't catching touchdowns, and all of a sudden, the game last week was monster game. And I emotionally worry about starting guy the week after he has this huge game. But it's a tempting play, no doubt about it. $5,200 and going against the Chargers at home. All right, sounds good.
Yep, I like it. And then the last one that I do want to talk about is going to be Ricky Seals-Jones. I was all over this guy last week, and it definitely paid off. He was 2,500 last week, scored 9 DraftKings points. I was so happy with those 9 DraftKings points because he did his job over 3x in terms of value there. So that was good. And then they priced him up $500, so that's fine as well. Going against the Chiefs, great matchup. Chiefs, one of the worst defenses in the league in terms of DraftKings points given up to tight ends. Big total. I like Seals-Jones quite a bit. He actually had 8 targets last week, which is insane for his price tag. And I believe there was a target in the end zone for Seals-Jones as well, if I'm not mistaken. So that would have been an even bigger game. But, I like Seals-Jones here quite a bit. They don't have a lot of passing options in Washington. A lot of injuries, and Logan Thomas, of course, is still on the IR. So Seals-Jones going back to him this week.
Yeah. Was he 3,000 last week also?
Yeah, he was 2,500. They priced him up 500.
Well, they brought 500, but still, good point. He did get a target, near the end zone there. I don't think he had he almost caught it, or it was a chance. So he scores a touchdown, and then he becomes even more enjoyable. But that is a tempting thing to go back to. It's 2.9% owned, which is a little for tight ends. That's a little bit higher up, but it's still a fairly low ownership number. So. Go back to Seals Jones. Huh? I played him too. I had 2 whopping lineups last week, and he definitely helped. He gave you some points, and he gave you some salary to use on other people. So I guess we'll do it again.
Yeah, I was very happy with Seals Jones 9 points. I'll take 9 points of that price all day.
Sounds great.
Anything else stick out to you for tight end?
No, you hit the ones I was looking at. I wonder how the Raiders are going to react, losing their coach and getting an assistant coach in. You know, is Waller? He's at Denver, which is probably a tough play. He's the third most highest owned. It's kind of hard for him not to be owned because he's such a great player. But it'll be interesting to see, just in general, how this team responds. Will they get lost? Will the quarterback be? You know, that quarterback's kind of tied to Gruden, Carr. So I'm really interested, just as a fan, to see how that team responds on the road. Or let me see. Yeah, it's at Denver. So, and Denver lost. They're probably not too happy. It'll be an interesting game. We're getting to that point in the season where, you know, teams want to, we're starting to get into the divisional races or conference races, and wins become more important. I know that sounds stupid, but they do.
That's true. Yeah, agreed. All right. So those were pretty simple at tight end, right? Kelsey up top, Seals Jones down at the bottom, Andrews in the middle. I like all those 3. But, yeah, defense is tough this week. Curious to hear the ownership on some of these. If I had to pay up for a defense, I'm looking at the Colts defense. Is a 43.5-point game total. They are 9.5-point favorites going against the Texans. I think it's one of the lowest totals on the slate. I think Colts defense is fine. Going down, I'm just going to punt at defense like usual, which has been working out as of late, so I'm going to keep going back to it. There's nothing really down below, though. I mean, the Texans' defense against the Colts, it's a low total. They're cheap. You don't need much. Lions' defense, I know they're not great, but they're cheap. You don't need much, 2,100. So I'm probably just going to punt down with one of these bad defenses. If I have salary, I'll go up to this mid-range and get some of these, but for the most part, I'll probably just keep punting down.
Well, the Colts are the number 1 owned defense at 13.5%, and the next one down is Green Bay, and there's a lot of ones close. It's at 7.4. So the Colts are, there's a significant level there. Houston is actually the 3rd most owned defense. Of course, $2,200 at 7.6%, tied with Green Bay. So those are interesting to look at. But yeah, I think we need to. The punting is an interesting scenario right here. But Houston, they're only $2,200. But Indianapolis just blew that game. They just blew that game.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't know how they'll respond to that. And Wentz has a tendency to try and do a little too much and can get some sacks and perhaps a fumble or an interception. So, I don't know. Houston, that's kind of, you talk about punting, but they are getting a relatively high ownership, which is surprising, I guess.
Yep, I guess a lot of people like thinking like me, like just punt down at defense, punt down at tight end, go get Devontae Adams, go get Derrick Henry, McCaffrey. Like it works out. It really does.
And just for interesting data here, New England is the least most owned defense at this point at $3,000 at 1.1% against Dallas at home. And Washington at playing Kansas City is the second lowest at 1.3%. Just an FYI.
Yeah, I think Washington's 2K minimum for defense, and nobody's playing them.
That's low.
Yeah,
and I don't know if I would, but
no, I don't know.
I mean, Kansas City has got to be just completely pissed. They've got to just. I can only imagine what they're going through right now, saying we got to move. We got to, this is it. We got to be who we are. So. But would there, it's hard to sack Mahomes. Are you expecting a turnover? I don't. So I don't even know if I'd go for Washington, and obviously there isn't many that do at 1.3%. So, you're trying to squeeze this, and is there something I'm missing? And I don't think I'm missing anything there.
Yeah, it's bad. Like Texans, Lions, Washington, I'd probably go Texans over Washington. Even the Lions over Washington as well, but that's not much better. But, yep, should be interesting to see where that ownership goes throughout the week in terms of defense as well.
Burrow, he got beat up in that game, and I don't know if he can actually talk very much right now. He may have to do hand signals. They were talking because his throat is still messed up, and he has been sacked a few times, and he has thrown some interceptions. So Detroit at 2,100 may they're more owned than Washington. They're owned at 4.6%. FYI.
Okay. Yeah, but I think that is about it. I think we covered pretty much everything, and there's going to be so much things that open up throughout the week as well that we'll talk about on Sunday.
Fantastic, and of course, everybody, watch these values, and of course the news on Football Diehards, because the ownerships are always fun, very important, and they do move. Remember Sunday morning we saw some significant movement just before the show started, so it's quite interesting.
That 100%.
All right, we're finished for Wednesday, huh? The Wednesday show is done?
Yep, we're all done. 10 games this week. I think it's like a couple less than usual.
Yeah, we're it's fun. It's kind of fun without the bye weeks, but then again, it's always another challenge with the bye weeks, and we got them, so we might as well work with them.
Yep, for sure.
All right, Jason. Great show.
All right, good luck. Good luck. See you Sunday.